Friends, fear has walked beside humanity like a long shadow. It is the first whisper we hear when we step towards something new. It is the tightening in the chest when we dare to dream beyond the walls we inherited. It is the voice that says, "Be careful, don't risk, stay small." For centuries, fear has been dressed up as wisdom. It has been disguised as humility. Parents passed it down to children, leaders used it to control the masses, and even religion at times wrapped it in sacred language. Fear was not only allowed, it was praised as prudence. But friends, fear was never the truth. Fear is an echo. Loud, yes, but not eternal. Fear is the residue of wounds, the ghost of scarcity, the echo of survival. This journey you and I now step into is not about pretending fear does not exist. It is not about shaming ourselves for trembling hands or racing hearts. Instead, it is about something more radical. It is about walking through fear, through it, not around it. Fear is not a wall, it is a veil, and when you step through it, you discover the truth that was always waiting on the other side. In this audiobook, Walking Through Fear, we will not only name the great fears that haunt humanity, we will unravel them. We will see how they creep into everyday life, how they whisper into decisions, how they cage destinies before they even have a chance to bloom. And then we will walk together through each one until what felt like chains are remembered as illusions. Together, we will explore 5 great fears: the fear of lack, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of mortality, and the fear of intimacy. These fears show up in different disguises, but their root is the same. They want you to forget who you are. They want you to bow when you were born to rise. Here you will hear stories, real, relatable stories. You will hear reframes, truths that cut through distortions. You will hear decrees, words that are not mere repetition, but reprogramming. And woven through it all will be an invitation to breathe deeper, to remember clearer, to rise higher. Friends, this is not a journey of escaping fear. It is not a journey of suppressing fear. It is a journey of walking through fear and discovering that love, abundance, and wholeness were waiting beyond it all along. So breathe with me now. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your chest open. You are safe here. You are sovereign here. You are whole here. And with that, let us begin. Chapter 1. The Lie of Scarcity. From the first days of childhood, most of us were handed a script we never chose. It sounded gentle, but it carried weight. It sounded cautious, but it carried chains. The script whispered, "There is not enough. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough opportunities, not enough of you." This whisper did not always shout, but it sank deep. It lived in the phrases spoken by parents who worried about bills. It echoed in classrooms where resources felt limited. It lingered in conversations where comparison was the measure of worth. Slowly, scarcity became the lens through which we viewed life, and its grip pressed so hard that even in seasons of plenty, the fear of lack still tightened its hold. Imagine a little boy who loved to draw. His notebook was filled with sketches of houses, animals, faces, lines that carried both imagination and innocence. But when he showed his parents, they sighed and said, "That's nice, but you can't make a living drawing pictures. Choose something safe." The boy didn't stop drawing, but he stopped believing that his gift mattered. Scarcity taught him that creativity was a luxury he could not afford. Picture a teenager dreaming of becoming a musician. He practiced late into the night, strumming until his fingers ached. His heart lit up when melodies flowed. But when he told his parents, they shook their heads. Music won't feed you. The world doesn't have room for another dreamer. Be practical. Scarcity convinced him that dreams are dangerous because there is never enough space for passion in this world. Think of a young woman in her 20s. She started a small business, pouring her heart into it. She worked long hours, sacrificed weekends, and smiled at customers even when she was exhausted. But every night, she lay awake, whispering, "What if it's not enough? What if I fail? What if I can't keep up?" The heaviness in her chest wasn't just from work, it was the invisible tax scarcity placed on her spirit. Now imagine a man in his 30s. He is a faithful provider. The bills are paid, the children are clothed, food is always on the table. Yet when he looks at colleagues buying bigger houses and newer cars, scarcity whispers, "You are behind." Scarcity blinds him to the wealth already alive in his home, the laughter of his children, the joy of his wife, the warmth of a roof. He is rich in love, but scarcity tells him he is poor. Consider a woman in her 40s. She longs to study further, to enroll in a program that would open new doors. She even fills out the forms and places them on her desk, but her hands freeze when it's time to send them in. Scarcity hisses, "What if you can't afford it? What if the money runs out? What if you start and cannot finish?" And so she folds the forms away. Not because she couldn't, but because fear convinced her she shouldn't. Now picture an elder in their 70s. They sit in a quiet room, reflecting on decades past. They remember the opportunities they never took because they feared running out. They remember how often they chose safety over expansion, not because it was right, but because scarcity was loud. Their body is slower now, but their spirit aches with one haunting question. What would my life have been if I had trusted abundance instead of fearing lack? Friends, scarcity is not truth. Scarcity is training. It is not wisdom. It is hypnosis. It is the memory of empires that taught subjects to bow. It is the echo of colonizers who said resources belong only to the few. It is the distortion of religion that told people they must beg for favor instead of remembering union. Scarcity has been dressed up as caution, but it was never caution, it was control. Look at creation itself. The sun has never once risen and said, "I must conserve my light, for there is not enough." The ocean has never once rationed its waves, sending only 2 instead of thousands. The earth has never apologized for blooming too many flowers. Abundance is not the exception, it is the design. Scarcity is not the truth, it is the distortion. Let's pause here. Take this moment to decree and declare, "I am not small, I am expansive. I am not empty, I am overflowing, I am not behind, I am aligned. I am not cursed with lack, I am chosen for abundance." Say it aloud, type it below, let your body feel it. Every decree is not repetition, it is reprogramming. Every time you declare, the nervous system remembers. The spirit realm answers your voice. Now imagine again the teenager with his music. What if instead his parents said, "Your gift will make room for you. We trust your path"? He would have grown knowing provision flows from passion, not fear. Think of the young woman building her business. What if she declared daily, "I am not running out, I am running over"? Her energy would no longer be drained by panic, but filled by peace. Picture the man in his 30s. What if he measured wealth, not by cars or houses, but by joy, safety, and love in his home? He would realize he was already rich. And the woman in her 40s, what if she filled out the forms anyway, trusting that resources would align? She would discover doors opening, provision arriving, alignment unfolding. Even the elder in their 70s, what if they realized it is never too late to shift lenses? Abundance was never about years left, but about presence lived. Scarcity says you are too late. Abundance says you are right on time. Scarcity says you are too small. Abundance says you are infinite. Scarcity says you are forgotten. Abundance says you are chosen. So hear this clearly. Scarcity is not humility. Scarcity is not wisdom. Scarcity is the lie that keeps you bowing when you were born to stand. Friends, if you are listening on YouTube, I invite you to subscribe, not for my sake alone, but for yours, because this circle is your sanctuary. This is where you will keep remembering what the world forgets, that you are never late, never lacking, never erased. When you subscribe, you anchor yourself in a rhythm of remembrance. Let us pause once more and decree, I do not beg life to notice me. I command life to align with me. I do not fold into fear. I rise into flow. I do not shrink at the lie of scarcity. I expand in the truth of abundance. Say it aloud. Type it below. Let your body feel it. Every decree is not performance, it is alignment. Every decree is not noise, it is power. Your nervous system remembers. Your spirit stands taller. Friends, scarcity is not humility. Scarcity is not caution. Scarcity is the veil that hides abundance from your eyes. But you were never meant to live small. You were never meant to survive on crumbs. You were meant to overflow. So rise, friends. Rise beyond the lie of scarcity. Rise into remembrance of abundance. For the spirit realm already sees you overflowing, and that is enough. Chapter 2, The Fear of Failure. Friends, when we ended our last chapter, we were reminded that scarcity is a lie, a distortion designed to shrink your spirit. And yet, even when we begin to step out of scarcity, another shadow often waits at the threshold. That shadow is fear, specifically the fear of failure. It is one of the most persuasive fears humanity knows. It doesn't roar loudly like anger, nor sting sharply like rejection. Instead, it whispers, quiet, subtle, persistent. It whispers before you apply for the job. What if you don't get it? It whispers before you speak your truth. What if they laugh? It whispers before you dare to build, create, or love. What if you fall flat? And many times, those whispers convince us to stop before we even begin. Failure has been painted as a shameful verdict, a permanent scar, the end of the road. From childhood, we are trained to flinch at mistakes, to equate stumbling with weakness. A red X on an exam paper feels like a wound on the soul. A missed goal in sport brings laughter or scolding. A broken relationship is retold as gossip, stamped with the label failure. Slowly, we internalize the lie that failing means we are less, and so we grow into adults who fear not only the fall, but the possibility of falling. But here is the truth. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the soil in which success grows. Failure is not a verdict, it is a teacher. Failure is not shame, it is proof that you dared, that you stretched, that you stepped where others stayed still. Imagine a boy who stands nervously at his school's talent show. He strums a guitar, his hands trembling, his voice cracking. The crowd giggles. He forgets his lyrics halfway and rushes off stage, cheeks burning. In that moment, he feels the weight of failure. For days, he avoids eye contact. He promises never to try again. But years later, when he looks back, he realizes something powerful. Though he stumbled, he lived, he dared. He felt the thrill of standing on stage, a memory more alive than the safety of staying in the shadows. The failure planted seeds of courage that silence never could. Now, picture a young woman in her 20s. She lands her first job and dives in with passion. But one morning, she makes a mistake in a client report. Her manager calls her out in front of the team. Her chest tightens. Her eyes sting, and she vows never to take risks again. She hides in the background, avoiding responsibility. For months, she plays small, but over time, she begins to notice the mistake did not end her. It taught her. She now pays closer attention, double-checks her work, and her attention to detail becomes unmatched. That so-called failure was not her downfall. It was the foundation of her growth. Consider a man in his 30s. He pours his life savings into a small business. He dreams big, works hard, sacrifices sleep. For 3 years, he gives everything. But then the economy shifts, the market crashes, and the business collapses. Family whispers, he failed. Friends distance themselves. Shame clings like a shadow. Yet when the dust settles, he realizes he has gained what no textbook could teach: resilience, adaptability, vision. He now knows how to rise from ashes, how to build again with greater wisdom. The collapse was not a curse, it was initiation. Imagine a woman in her 40s walking out of court after signing her divorce papers. She once promised forever, but life unfolded differently. Society whispers, she failed at love. She failed as a wife. The label presses on her chest. But sitting in quiet one evening, she feels another truth rise within her. She did not fail by leaving. She failed herself by staying too long. Walking away was not failure, it was freedom. Her so-called failure was her doorway to wholeness. And picture an elder in their 70s. They sit quietly, reflecting on the years behind them. They recall the dreams they never chased, the risks they never took. They stayed in safe jobs, tolerated half-lived relationships, walked paths they did not love. Their regret is not in the falls they endured, but in the leaps they never took. They realized too late the true thief was never failure itself, but the fear of it. Friends, failure is not your enemy. Failure is not your verdict. Failure is a sign that you lived, that you risked, that you dared. The only true failure is abandoning yourself. Pause with me here. Let this settle in your body. I am not the fall. I am the rising after. I am not erased by mistakes. I am expanded by them. Speak it. Whisper it. Let it sink deeper than the whispers of fear. Think again of the boy who forgot his lyrics on stage. What if he had been told, "Your courage is already a success"? He would have grown unafraid of trying. Think of the woman in her 20s, embarrassed at work. What if she had been told, every expert began as a beginner? Mistakes are proof of progress? She would have stood taller instead of shrinking. Picture the man in his 30s, business collapsing. What if he had been told, you did not fail, you gained wisdom no one can take away? He would not have carried shame, but dignity. Think of the woman in her 40s, marriage ending. What if she had been told, you did not fail at love, you honored yourself by leaving what no longer served? She would not have worn labels of shame, but a crown of courage. And the elder in their 70s, what if they had been told earlier, the only true failure is never trying? Their life would have been painted with more colors, not regrets. Friends, failure is not a tombstone. It is a stepping stone. It is not the end of your story. It is the ink that writes the next chapter. Failure refines. Failure reveals. Failure strengthens. Declare with me now, I am not broken by failure. I am built by it. I am not erased by mistakes. I am expanded by them. I am not ashamed of falling. I am proud of daring. These are not repetitions. They are rewirings. Every declaration reshapes your nervous system. Every word teaches your soul to remember. Failure is power because it dismantles the illusion of perfection. It teaches you that you can stumble and still stand. It teaches you that you can lose and still live. It teaches you that you are stronger than the lies that told you otherwise. Friends, how many songs have never been sung because someone feared a wrong note? How many books have never been written because someone feared rejection? How many businesses, movements, and revolutions never came alive because someone whispered, "What if I fail?" And here is the paradox. Those who have failed deeply often walk with more courage than those who never dared at all. The child who fell from a bike and rose again rides stronger than the one who never tried. The dreamer who lost money but rebuilt walks freer than the one who never risked a cent. The lover who lost but loved again knows a depth the guarded heart cannot taste. Failure is not final. It is formative. It shapes. It teaches. It strengthens. You are not weak because you failed. You are wise because you lived. So rise, friends. Rise beyond the lie that failure makes you less. Stand in the truth that failure makes you more compassionate, more resilient, more courageous, more alive. You are not the stumble. You are the standing. You are not the mistake. You are the learning. You are not the loss. You are the love that remains. Friends, this is the power of failure. It does not diminish you. It delivers you back to yourself. So walk forward now, not afraid of falling. Walk forward knowing that even if you do, you will rise again. And in rising, you will remember the truth that was never lost. You are enough. You are whole. You are sovereign, and that is enough. Chapter 3. The Fear of Rejection. There is a silence that does not comfort. It lingers between words unspoken, between glances turned away, between the heart that longs to be chosen, and the world that answers with its back. Rejection is not always loud. It is not always a slammed door or a harsh no. Sometimes it is a parent's distracted eyes, a lover's fading warmth, a community that cannot see your shape and says instead, become smaller, become quieter, become someone else. This fear enters before language. It begins in the cradle, in the way arms may or may not hold us. It follows into classrooms, into friendships, into the mirror where we study ourselves, asking silently, am I too much? Am I not enough? What must I cut away to be loved? Rejection teaches us to fracture, to slice off pieces of our laughter, to bury our strangeness, to rehearse the version of ourselves that might finally be acceptable. And in this rehearsing, we begin to forget the original song that lived inside our chest before the world told us what music was permitted. Imagine a boy in school, hand raised high. He knows the answer, his heart is bright, but the teacher sighs, rolls her eyes, and chooses another. The boy lowers his hand slowly. He learns that his voice does not matter. Picture a teenage girl confessing affection to a friend. He laughs, embarrassed, and tells her to stop being ridiculous. The laughter stings louder than any number. She learns that honesty is dangerous. Consider a man in his 20s passionate about art. He shows his sketches at a family gathering. The response is polite silence, followed by questions about a real job. He tucks the sketches away in a drawer. He learns that dreams invite rejection. Think of a woman in her 30s, brilliant at her work. But in every meeting, her ideas are ignored until repeated by a man. She learns that visibility brings dismissal. Now imagine an elder in their 70s. They carry stories, wisdom, experiences. But at family dinners, their voice is drowned by screens and chatter. They sit quietly, wondering if anyone sees them anymore. They learn that age too can feel like rejection. And picture a single mother carrying 2 jobs and endless courage. Instead of being celebrated, she hears whispers that she is hard to love, that her strength is too much, that her story is a mark against her. She learns that society often confuses survival with shame. Or imagine a young man discovering his true orientation. He gathers his courage to share it with his family. The room grows cold. Silence stretches heavy. He learns that love sometimes comes with conditions, and the price of authenticity feels unbearable. Rejection echoes in these moments. It is never just the incident itself. It is the echo, the ripple through time, teaching us to guard, to shrink, to contort ourselves, so we will never again be left outside the circle. And yet, the body remembers. Even as we armor ourselves, some part of us still aches for the original belonging. Some part of us still whispers, I was made to be seen. I was made to be loved without condition. The mind tries to explain it. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe love is a prize, and I have not yet earned it. But beneath these explanations is something older, the ancestral fear of exile. Our ancestors knew this pain well. To be rejected by the tribe was to be cast toward death. Exile meant hunger. Exile meant predators. Exile meant the slow erosion of spirit. And so the body remembers this terror, even now, when exile looks like breakups, like friendships fading, like communities turning cold, like families closing their doors. The fear of rejection does not simply ask for love. It asks for survival. It whispers, without their approval, you will not endure. And so we bend, we compromise, we betray ourselves in small and large ways, just to remain inside the circle. But safety built on self-abandonment is not safety at all. It is starvation of the soul. For what use is being included if the one they include is not your true self, but the mask you learn to wear? There is grief in realizing this. Grief in seeing how many years, how many generations were spent rehearsing masks instead of remembering faces. Across the world, rejection has worn many names: caste, color, language, gender, religion, orientation. Entire cultures have bent themselves to survive exclusion. Entire lineages passed down silence and armor. But here is the wound beneath the wound. When the world rejects us, it suggests we must reject ourselves too. And often, unknowingly, we agree. Friends, pause with me here. Take this moment to decree and declare, I am not too much. I am enough. I am not invisible. I am seen. I am not unworthy. I am chosen. I do not shrink. I expand. I do not beg. I belong. I do not fracture. I am whole. I do not mask. I am free. Say it aloud. Type it below. Let your body feel it. Every decree is not repetition. It is reprogramming. Every time you declare, the nervous system remembers. The spirit realm answers your voice. Rejection can never erase the original belonging. It can cover it, confuse it, but it cannot destroy it. Because belonging is not granted by the crowd. It is not earned by performance. It is the ground you were born on, the pulse that carried you here. Yes, rejection hurts, but it also clarifies. It shows you who cannot hold your fullness. It shows you the circles too small for your spirit. And in that clarity, you are freed to build your own circle. A circle where masks are unnecessary, where love does not demand erasure. So here is the choice rejection always offers. Will you continue rejecting yourself to avoid the sting of others, or will you endure the sting of others to finally accept yourself whole? To the boy ignored in class, your voice matters. To the teenager laughed at, your feelings are sacred. To the man whose art was silenced, your gift is needed. To the woman dismissed in meetings, your wisdom is light. To the single mother whispered about, your strength is honor. To the young man shamed for his truth, your authenticity is divine. To the elder, overlooked, your presence is legacy. Friends, belonging is not something they grant. It is something you embody. It is something you remember. And once remembered, it cannot be taken away. So rise, friends. Rise beyond the fear of rejection. Rise beyond the masks and the fractures. Rise into the remembering. You are already included, already chosen, already whole. And that is enough. Chapter 4. The Fear of Mortality. Every life walks with a shadow. It appears in childhood as a question too large to ask. In youth as a danger we pretend cannot reach us. In adulthood as the quiet dread behind every loss. And in old age as the breath that waits just beyond the next. This shadow is mortality. It does not shout, it does not hurry, but it follows, faithful and unyielding, reminding us that the span of our days is a thread with an end. The fear of mortality is not just the fear of death itself, it is the fear of endings, of change that cannot be reversed, of time moving one way and never back. It is the fear that all we have gathered will slip through our fingers, that all we have loved will one day be beyond our reach. Mortality is the quiet guest at every celebration. It sits at the edge of weddings. It lingers behind the laughter of children. It waits even in the hush of prayer. We do not invite it, yet it comes. We do not greet it, yet it watches. To live is to walk beside it, whether we acknowledge it or not. Some days we forget its company, distracted by the business of survival, lost in the rhythm of work and desire. Other days, its nearness startles us awake. A sudden illness, a siren in the night, a phone call that redraws the map of our lives. As children, we taste this fear early. A beloved pet disappears, and suddenly the world feels less safe. A grandmother's funeral reveals faces we have never seen before, all gathered around the reality of loss. A child looks up at a parent and asks, "Will you always be here?" The pause before the answer is enough to carve the fear into their chest. As teenagers, we begin to wrestle with invincibility. We laugh in the face of risk, drive too fast, dare too boldly, believing death is distant, believing endings are for the old. But then a classmate falls ill, or a friend is lost in an accident, and the illusion cracks. Mortality enters the conversation, whether we want it or not. In adulthood, the fear matures with us. We cling more tightly to ambitions, building careers, families, houses, legacies, as if these will shield us from impermanence. When a parent ages, when a colleague dies young, when the first strands of grey appear, the whisper grows louder, this too will end. And in elderhood, the shadow steps closer still. The body slows, the hands tremble, the calendar feels thinner. Mortality is no longer abstract. It is intimate, pressing close with every breath. Mortality does not measure worth. It does not choose the righteous or the cruel, the young or the old. It arrives when it will, asking no permission, caring nothing for our plans. And yet, even knowing this, we tremble. We build rituals to ward it off. We create medicines to delay it. We weave stories to soften its truth. But beneath all our efforts lies the unchanging fact: to be alive is to be finite. To begin is to one day end. Our ancestors knew this fear well. They buried their dead with songs and stones, with carvings and fire, with prayers that the spirit would find its way into whatever waits beyond. They painted caves with ochre hands, as if to say, "We were here. Do not forget us, even when we are gone." Some believed death was a passage, others believed it was a final extinguishing. But in every culture, in every time, there was the same trembling, a recognition that the body does not last, that the seasons we walk through are numbered. In the marrow of this fear is the memory of exile, for to die is in some way to be cast out of the circle of the living. And so the body clings, the heart resists, the mind bargains, not yet, not me, not this way. But mortality is patient. It does not hurry, but neither does it yield. It knows that all rivers lead to the same sea. Friends, pause with me here. Take this moment to decree and declare. I honor endings as sacred. I embrace time as a gift. I return always to source. I am remembered beyond breath. I am eternal essence. Say it aloud. Type it below. Let your body feel it. Every decree is not repetition. It is reprogramming. Every time you declare, the nervous system remembers. The spirit realm answers your voice. Still, the fear persists. It does not dissolve easily. It asks us, what will become of me? Will I be remembered? Will I vanish? Will my love carry on? Or be buried with me in the earth? Generations before us have asked the same questions. Some sought eternity in monuments, raising stones so high they might touch the sky. Some sought it in lineage, placing hope in children and names that would carry their memory forward. Some sought it in story, writing words that would outlive their breath. And some, weary of fear, surrendered into faith, trusting that what ends here continues elsewhere. But for all our seeking, the fear of mortality remains, because no answer, no belief, no monument can erase the fact that to love anything in this world is to risk losing it, and to live at all is to one day die. This is the paradox, the very thing we fear. The end is what makes life precious. Without endings, moments would blur. Without the limit of time, we would not recognize its worth. It is mortality that makes a sunrise holy, that makes a goodbye sacred, that makes love urgent and fierce. Think of the father holding his newborn. The tears in his eyes come not only from joy, but from the knowledge that time is fleeting. Think of the woman burying her mother. The ache in her chest is heavy, but it also awakens her to treasure her own days. Think of the elder watching a sunset alone. The glow is bittersweet, but deeply alive, because the elder knows there will not be endless sunsets. Still, the fear whispers. It whispers in the night when the body is still. It whispers in hospital corridors. It whispers when we see someone younger than us die, reminding us that no one is guaranteed tomorrow. We try to turn away, but mortality follows. We try to silence it, but it waits in silence deeper than ours. And eventually, we must learn not to escape it, but to walk with it. For perhaps the purpose is not to conquer the fear of mortality, but to let it teach us how to live, to remind us that nothing is promised, so everything is worthy of reverence. To remind us that endings are not failures, but part of the same rhythm. That gave us beginnings. So hear this clearly. Mortality is not a thief. It is a teacher. It does not erase your worth. It sharpens it. It does not diminish your life. It amplifies it. To the child who lost a pet, your grief is proof of love. To the teenager who lost a friend, your tears are sacred. To the adult burying a parent, your sorrow is holy. To the elder feeling the closeness of death, your breath is still a gift. Friends, let this chapter close not with fear, but with awe. Not with trembling, but with reverence. Yes, one day the breath will cease, but today you breathe. Today you are here. Today, your love, your laughter, your presence still ripple across the field of existence, and that is enough. Chapter 5. The Fear of Intimacy. There are distances that are not measured in miles. They are measured in heartbeats, withheld in truths, unsaid, in glances that never linger long enough to be known. The fear of intimacy is not the fear of bodies touching. It is the fear of souls meeting. It is the trembling that arises when someone sees beyond the mask and touches the unguarded self beneath. Intimacy asks for exposure, not just of our beauty, but of our wounds, not just of our strength, but of our fragility. It asks us to stand without armor before another, trusting that they will not use our tenderness as a weapon. For many, this is unbearable. For rejection may wound, but intimacy risks something deeper: to be seen and found unworthy, to be loved and then abandoned, to be known, truly known, and then discarded. So we dance at the edges of closeness. We show fragments of ourselves, enough to be accepted, but not enough to be destroyed. We share our laughter, but hide our grief. We reveal our ideas, but conceal our longing. We offer our bodies, but withhold our souls. This fear is ancient. It is written in families, where vulnerability was met with ridicule. It is carried in lineages, where affection was rationed, given only when earned. It is whispered through generations, where silence guarded secrets, and no one learned the safety of being fully seen. In some households, love came only when chores were done, grades achieved, expectations met. In others, love was loud but inconsistent, shouted in anger as often as whispered in care. Children raised in these climates grow into adults who wonder, is love ever stable? Is intimacy ever safe? And so the fear takes root early. The little one who was laughed at for crying becomes the adult who hides every tear. The child who was scolded for speaking too much becomes the partner who keeps secrets. The teenager shamed for their first desire becomes the parent who cannot hold their own child's longing without judgment. Generations braid themselves around this fear, and without realizing it, we pass down the lesson: don't open too much, don't reveal too far, don't risk the fullness of yourself. Imagine a teenager lying awake at night. They want to tell a friend their truth about who they love, about who they are, but they replay the risk in their mind. What if this friend turns away? What if my honesty ends the bond? And so silence feels safer. Picture a woman in her 20s, newly married, longing to share her fears and insecurities, but she watches her husband's tired eyes, remembers how vulnerability was dismissed in her childhood, and decides instead to say, "I'm fine." She learns to swallow intimacy in order to preserve peace. Consider a man in his 40s, successful, respected, admired, yet no one truly knows his inner world. When asked how he feels, he changes the subject. Years of self-containment have convinced him that closeness invites danger. And imagine an elder in their 70s reflecting on a lifetime of relationships. They realize, with both sorrow and clarity, that though many loved them, few ever truly knew them. Walls kept them safe, but also kept them lonely. These stories are not rare. They are echoes of the same fear woven through every age, every culture, every life stage. Intimacy terrifies because it dissolves control. To let someone close is to admit we cannot shape how they will hold us. It is to surrender the image we have so carefully crafted and risk that our raw, unedited self might not be enough. The body remembers every wound of closeness, the friend who betrayed a confidence, the lover who left after learning too much, the parent whose embrace was conditional. Each wound writes a warning into our skin. Do not open too wide. Do not trust too deeply. Keep the most tender parts hidden. And yet, the paradox burns within us. We long for closeness as much as we fear it. We ache for someone to know us fully, even as we tremble at the thought. We crave the warmth of being seen, yet we sabotage it when it arrives. We build walls for protection, then press our palms against them at night, mourning the connection those walls prevent. Look closely and you will see. that much of what we call love is often negotiation with this fear. We offer carefully curated versions of ourselves, hoping they will be lovable enough. We withhold truths, believing honesty will cost us the bond. We set boundaries not from self-respect, but from self-protection, drawing lines to prevent others from ever reaching the places that still carry scars. But intimacy is not the enemy. It is the medicine we resist. It is the place where healing becomes possible, because what was wounded in relationship must often be mended in relationship. To be seen and still accepted, to be known and still held, to be raw and still loved. Healing intimacy does not appear all at once. It begins in small moments. A friend who listens without judgment, a partner who stays after the truth is revealed, a sibling who apologizes instead of defending, a child who hugs you with complete trust, reminding you of the innocence that still lives in you. In these small encounters, the body begins to unlearn its warnings. It remembers that not everyone abandons, that not every truth is punished, that not every opening leads to pain. Slowly, the walls soften. Slowly, the fear loosens. Slowly, intimacy becomes possible. Friends, pause with me here. Take this moment to decree and declare, I am strong in love. I am safe in truth. I am worthy of closeness. I honor my tenderness. I open gates of trust. I welcome intimacy as healing. Say it aloud. Type it below. Let your body feel it. Every decree is not repetition. It is reprogramming. Every time you declare, the nervous system remembers. The spirit realm answers your voice. Still, the fear is stubborn. It will resurface in arguments, in silence, in the urge to run. It will whisper, don't trust this. It won't last. You will be hurt again. And in those moments, courage is needed. Not the courage to erase fear, but the courage to remain present alongside it, because intimacy will always ask for risk. There is no closeness without exposure, no love without vulnerability, no bond without surrender. To open the heart is to accept the possibility of breaking, but it is also to accept the possibility of healing, the possibility of communion, the possibility of being fully alive. So let this chapter close quietly, not with commands, but with reflection. Notice the walls you have built. Notice the places you guard most fiercely. Notice how those walls both protect and imprison. And then, without rushing, without judgment, ask yourself this: where might it be safe to open a little wider, to let yourself be seen, not in perfection, but in truth? For intimacy does not demand that you bear everything at once. It asks only that you begin, that you risk a small unveiling, a small surrender, a small act of trust. And perhaps in that quiet act, you will discover what the fear tried to hide, that you were always worthy of closeness, that love is not earned by masks, that tenderness is strength, that to be known is not a threat, but a homecoming. So breathe here at the edge of your walls. Do not force them down. Let them soften. Let them remember that intimacy is not the danger, it is the doorway. And you have always held the key. And as this journey through the 5 great fears comes to its close, pause for a moment. Feel what it means that you have walked through lack, through failure, through rejection, through mortality, and now through intimacy itself. You have not been untouched, but you are still here, more whole, more awake, more true. And before we part ways, let me invite you gently. If these words have spoken to your spirit, if they have reminded you of the power that was always yours, then stay with us. Subscribe to Untamed Knowing, and let us continue walking together, beyond fear into remembrance, into the fullness of who you are.